In this slide, we see the reactions that are taking place in this experiment. You can see in reaction 1, we have the potassium iodate reacting with the sodium bisulfite to produce potassium iodide and sodium bisulfate. The ions that we're interested in that reaction are actually the iodate ion reacting with the bisulfite ions to form iodine ions, sulfate ions, and hydrogen ions. So in reaction 2, the iodine ions actually react with the iodate ions and hydrogen ions to produce diatomic iodine and water. And in reaction 3, the diatomic iodine reacts with the bisulfite ions that are actually from the sodium bisulfite that's in the solution, and water to produce the iodine ions, sulfate ions, and hydrogen ions. Now, as long as there is bisulfite ions present, then reaction 3 is going to take the iodine that's being produced in reaction 2 and convert it into iodine ions and sulfate ions and hydrogen ions. But when we run out of the bisulfite ions, then reaction 4 takes place. The iodine reacts with the starch and we get that blue-black color indicating the end of the reaction. So that's how we're able to time these reactions, is 2 and 3 continuously go on until there's no longer any bisulfite left. On this slide, it's showing the amount of solutions being added to each of the test tubes in blue. You can see we have all the test tubes are 1s because solution 1's being added to them. A1, B1, C1, D1 test tubes are 500, 400, 300, and 200 microliters respectively. And then in addition to that, it tells you the water that's being added to them, which brings all of their volumes up to 1,000 microliters. And then in the red, we have the test tubes where solution 2 is being added. And again, that's A2, B2, C2, D2. All of these test tubes are getting 200 microliters except for test tube F2, which is getting 400 microliters of solution 2. And then the volume is just brought up to 1,000 microliters by adding 800 microliters of distilled water to all the test tubes except for F2, where we're only adding the 600 microliters to bring it up to 1,000 microliters. All right, I have all my test tubes labeled, and I'm going to be adding solution 1 to all the test tubes in number 1. And according to my chart, I'm going to add 500 microliters to A1. So I've already set my micropipette on 500. And I'll add my 500 to A1, and then A2 gets 400. I'm sorry, B1 gets 400. And then C1 gets 300. D1 gets 200. And E1 gets 100. F1 gets 400. And G1 gets 100. Now U1 is going to be the unknown, and so that's just going to get a full 1,000 microliters of the unknown here. So back in all these solution ones, I'm going to be adding distilled water to them to bring them all up to exactly 1 milliliter, 1,000 microliters. But right now I'm going to add my solution number 2 to all of my number 2 test tubes in the back. And A2 up to E2 are all getting 200 microliters. Now, this is the second solution, so this has the sodium bisulfite, and it's got sulfuric acid, and it's also got 2% starch in it as an iodine indicator. So I'm adding 200 to A2. I'm adding 200 to B2. 200 to C2. 200 to D2. 200 to E2. And G2 and U2 also get 200, so while I'm on the 200, I'm going to put 200 in G2 and 200 in U2. Now the F2 is going to get 400 microliters. And so again, I'll bring all of these up to 1,000 microliters by adding the water. So I'll add 800 microliters to all of them except F2. I'll only get 600 microliters to. And that'll have all of our test tubes set and ready for our reaction. All right, I'm ready to fill up the rest of the test tube with distilled water so that they will all be at 1,000 microliters. I'm actually going to start back here with my number 2 test tubes. All of them are going to get 800 microliters except for F2, which is only going to get 600. So set my micropipette on 800, and I'm going to add 800 to A2, 800 to B2, 800 to C2, 800 to D2, 800 to E2. I'm going to skip F2 and add 800 to G2 and add 800 to U2. Now I'm going to set it on 600 and add my 600 microliters of water to F2. Okay, now my A1s are going to be a little bit different in that they're going to mostly be different amounts. I added 500 microliters of solution 1, which is just the potassium iodate solution for all of these. That's what's in there right now. I'm going to add the 500 microliters of water to A1. And I'm going to add 600 microliters to B1. And I'm going to add 700 microliters to C1. microliters. D1. And the E1's going to get 900 microliters of distilled water. Also, G1 is going to get 900 microliters, so I'm going to do that while it's set on 900 to G1. And then F1 is going to get 600. So that's 600 microliters distilled water into F1, right? All right, and you can see they're all just about 1,000 microliters. All the test tubes aren't the same exact size, but I can see I've added about 1,000 microliters, well, exactly 1,000 microliters to each one of them with the combined solution and water, and I'm ready to do my testing now. All right, I put the test tubes G1 and G2 on ice, so they'll be done at a lower temperature, and we're about to start the reaction. So I'm going to be mixing test tubes A1 and A2, and I'll start the timer, and then you'll look for the reaction time. And it will turn, I like using a nice high percentage of starch so you can really see the reaction when it takes place, and it'll turn a nice dark blue color. So I'm going to take my A2 and my A1, and I am going to start the timer and then pour. And I pour back and forth a little bit to mix it well. And then we'll let that sit. And you'll want to watch for the color change there. And there it goes. So I hope you noted the time on the stopwatch. If not, you can go back in the video and look at it again. So I'm going to stop that and clear it. And I'm going to do the same thing for B1 and B2 here. And I'm going to start them here. There's our B1, so you can see the reaction taking place. And again, when it changes color, you want to note the time of the reaction. There we go. Now I'm going to do the same thing with C1 and C2. And there's our reaction time for that one. Now I'm going to do our D1 and D2. there's our reaction time for that one. Now I'm going to do E1 and E2. And there's our reaction time for that one. And now we'll do the F2 and F1. All right, now I'm going to mix the F1 and F2. And these are higher concentrations, so I'm going to mix them quickly here. Oh, there it went. All right, I'm going to move on to the unknown. Didn't stop, so you might want to go back and see where the color change started there. That's the unknown. Now we're going to do the G1. All right, so the G1 and G2 have been sitting on ice. And we'll get those done. there it is.